Hey everybody, Palumbo here. One of the main problems people face when wanting to learn how to use Excel or Google Sheets or data analysis in general is data. Namely, where do you get it? Because unlike learning how to code, you can't really learn data analysis if you don't have data to analyze. So in this video, I'm going to show you a couple of resources and methods I use when I want to find data to practice on, and more importantly, how to get that data into a spreadsheet so I can use it. So the first question is, where do you find data? Well, fortunately, if you have access to the internet, you have access to data. And one of the best sources of data that I have found is Kaggle.com. So Kaggle is a platform for data scientists to participate in competitions, collaborate with others, and most importantly, access public data sets. It's free to register, and once you do, you can start downloading data sets immediately. And I was on here the other day and I found one that I thought was kind of interesting: Netflix movies and TV shows. This one was updated 2 years ago, so it looks like it's probably a little old, but still interesting nonetheless. Notice Kaggle will give you some information about the data set. And this I thought was interesting. Interesting task ideas. So, understanding what content is available in different countries, identifying similar content by matching text based features. And I like the fourth one. Does Netflix have more of a focus on TV shows than movies in recent years? So, these are all kind of interesting questions that realistically somebody who's working as a data analyst would be tasked with answering. And if you scroll down some more, you'll find Kaggle gives you a kind of a summary or a synopsis of what that data set looks like. Essentially, it'll give you the column headers and what some of the values look like. So in this case, we have things like show ID, type, title, director, cast, country, date added, release year, etc. So this one looks pretty interesting to me. I want to download it and take a look at it. So all I'm going to do is I can click on either this little down arrow button here or click up here on download. I'm going to go ahead and download it into my downloads folder. And once that downloads, let's open it up. It does download as a zipped file. So I need to go in here and extract it, which we're going to do. And here we have the data set in a CSV or comma separated value file. So let's say I want to get this data into either a Google Sheet or an Excel workbook to start looking at it. Let's start with Google Sheets. First of all, I'm going to open up a new sheet. The way that you import a local file into a Google Sheet is by clicking on File, Import, and then Upload. I'm going to click on Browse. I'm going to select the file that I want to import, click on Open. Google Sheets is now going to ask me where do I want to put that data and what is the separator type. I'm just going to tell it to, I'm going to tell it to insert a new sheet. And this is a comma separated value file, but I'm just going to let Google Sheets figure that out automatically. I'm going to click on Import Data. This is a relatively small data set, so it should import pretty quickly. In fact, there it is. I have worked with a couple of data sets that were quite large and took, I think in one case, up to 3 minutes to actually import. But now we actually have the data in a Google Sheet for us to start working with. And there's all sorts of things that we can start doing with this here. But let's say we wanted to import this into a Excel workbook. Well, the obvious answer would be, let's go back to the downloads folder, archive, is because it's a CSV file and I'm on a PC, my PC is already saying this should be opened with Excel. So I can just double click this file and have it open up in Excel. But let's say I'm already working in an Excel workbook. I already have data in there and I want to actually bring this data into that workbook as well. How would I do that? Actually, it's quite simple. And in my opinion, it is a very neat feature of Excel. And I'm going to be using Power Query. So the way that you would use Power Query to import data into an Excel workbook is, first of all, I'm going to click on Data, and then I'm going to click on From Text/CSV. And from here, go back into Downloads, into my archive, select that file, and click on Import. And What Power Query does, first and foremost, is it gives me this window with a summary or a preview of what that data looks like. From here, all I have to do is click on load, and that data is loaded directly into my workbook as a table, and I can immediately start working with this. So that was very, very quick and easy. It's one of the reasons why I really enjoy Kaggle, and definitely implore you to check it out. Sign up and use their service if you're interested in learning how to either learning how to use spreadsheets or improve your spreadsheet skills, maybe even things like learning SQL or database management. It's a great place to find data. But let's say you wanted to pull data in from a website. How would you do that? So let's go back into my browser and let's go to Wikipedia, and I'm going to search for an entry on world population. Here we go. And as we scroll down this page, we'll start seeing a number of different tables with all sorts of interesting facts and values related to world population and how it shifted over the years. And the one table that I'm actually kind of interested in is this one here, global annual population growth. So this is the table that I actually want to get into either a Google Sheet or an Excel workbook. How would I do that? Well, I think the first inclination that most people would have is to copy and paste. In some cases that would work, but it's definitely not the preferred method. So let me show you how I would do this for both a Google Sheet and an Excel workbook. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to copy the URL, and then I'm going to go back into my Google Sheet. I'm going to give myself a new tab and call this one World Population. And I'm going to use a feature, or rather a function in Google Sheet that is very handy, and that is import HTML. And I'm just going to hit tab to autocomplete that. The first thing that it's asking me for is the URL that I just copied. The next thing it's asking me for is a query. And if I click here to drop down the documentation, we see here query is either list or table, depending on what type of structure contains the desired data. If you have any knowledge of HTML, you understand that when you're building a website, if you want to have content in a list or a table, you're going to use different types of tags. And essentially what you're telling Google Sheets here is what tag it should be looking for when it's looking to scrape this data from this web page. If you're not sure, let me show you how you can figure that out. I'm going to go into this Wikipedia page, and I am going to hit Control-Shift-I, and that brings up, at least in Chrome, that brings up the developer tools. And this actually lets you look at the HTML of the web page that you're currently viewing. Once I do that, right here, there's this little arrow icon, and if I hover over it, it says select an element in the page to inspect it. If I click on that and click on any value in this table, it will immediately jump to where that value is in the HTML, and let me look at it. And I can see here that this is a table. It has the table tag right in front of it. Now, if this were a list, and Google Sheets can import data from lists, instead of the table tag, we would see either a OL tag or an LI tag for ordered list or unordered list. But in this case, it's a table, and I think in most cases, you're going to be working with tables. So let's go ahead and in double quotes, I'm going to put table. Next, it's going to ask for index. And as we see here, go ahead and close out this developer tools. There are a number of different tables inside of this one page. So essentially what we're telling Google Sheets is which table to actually download. And I'm going to go ahead and put in 12 because it is the 12th table. If I hit enter, we're going to see loading, and then it's going to go and it has grabbed that table for me. And now I have this data inside of my workbook, but there is a little bit of a catch to it. If I click back on A1 where I entered the import HTML function, I still see that function. What this tells me is this data is in my workbook, but it's kind of not. It's in there because it's being pulled using this import HTML function. The good thing about this is that if that website were to be updated, this data would update automatically as well, because it's basically just pulling in data from another source. The downside, though, is I can't really work with this data. For example, let's say I wanted to get rid of this header row. If I went in here and deleted this row, well, I actually just deleted the whole thing because the header row is where that function lived. So let's undo that. The way you get around this is I am going to just select this entire table. I am going to copy it, and then I'm going to paste special and paste values only. Once I do that, it is no longer a function. Basically, Sheets has taken these values and put them in place and actually made it constants inside the workbook. So at this point, if I wanted to go and delete the header, I can do that, and everything else here stays the same. So that's a really nifty function of Google Sheets if you wanted to actually pull data in from a web page. However, what if we wanted to do this with Excel? So it's actually not quite as simple, but it's much more powerful. So once again, I'm going to use Power Query to go out and get it. I'm going to click on Data, and then I'm going to click on From Web. And what I need is the URL of this website again. I'm going to drop it into the URL field here, click OK. And because there are a number of tables in this site, this is going to take a while. So I'm going to give it a minute to actually go ahead and pull all the tables in. Okay, it took roughly about a minute. Now we have this all the tables pulled into Excel for us to take a look at. So we wanted population growth. Let's see. Oh, here we go. Global annual population growth. This is the table that I imported into Google Sheets, and I want to import into my Excel workbook now. So last time I just clicked on load, and it loaded the table directly into my workbook. In this case, there is something I actually want to do before the data gets loaded. So I'm going to click on transform data. When I do that, I get the Power Query editor. And what this allows me to do is it's a very powerful tool that will let me go in and start cleaning up the data before it even gets put into my workbook. So for example, I notice here across the top, I have the headers, year, population, yearly growth number, and density. And then I have two sort of similar header rows right here. I don't need these. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is click on this little filter button, go to the bottom and take out year, and that gets rid of those two rows. The other thing is I want to make sure that yearly growth number is a number. If you notice here, this little icon tells me that currently this is being treated as text, not as a number. And I want this to be a number. So I'm going to click on this here and tell Excel that this is a whole number. Once I do that, I'm going to go ahead and click on close and load. Okay, once again, that took a little bit of time for it to import, but it did. And now I have that same exact data inside of my workbook here. So say, for example, if I wanted to visualize this, I could go to Insert. We'll do a line chart. And then I can go in here, select data, and let's actually remove this. And so I want to go ahead and do yearly growth. And then we edit the legend here. And so from there now, I can very quickly and easily create a chart that shows year over year what was the growth number for the world population. So that's another example of how you can actually go and grab data from a website, pull into a Google Sheet or a Excel workbook, and start kind of playing around with it. Once again, as I was learning how to work with data, particularly with spreadsheets, my biggest challenge was, where do I find data? And so Kaggle, Wikipedia, even things like Yahoo Finance, if you wanted to actually practice working on financial analysis. These are all methods that you can use to actually pull data or find a data set, pull it into a data analysis tool, and start working with it within minutes. So I hope this was helpful. As always, if it was, like, subscribe, leave comments, because I would really love to know if anyone has better ideas on where they find data. Would always be good to have more sources, because I'm always looking at where can I find interesting data sets to start parsing through. But anyways, I hope this video was helpful, and thank you very much for your time. Have a great day.